All right, so today we're going to be talking about S-turns. S-turns is basically used S here, so I use a road to depict it here, but it doesn't have to be a road. It could be another straight, like roads are easily the best, but another reference line like power lines is another good one. But this is basically what it looks like. You're just making an S along a road here. And the objective here is the purpose is to teach the effects of wind. On a turn radius. So you're going to enter the turn. You're going to enter the maneuver. First thing you're going to do your clearing turns and your before maneuver checklist. So for the arrow, you turn on your fuel pump, landing light, recognition light, strobe light, and you want to make sure your mixture is full rich. Then you're going to do your clearing turns. With these clearing turns, you're going to be looking for, I marked it right here as TTTS, so you're going to be looking for traffic, towers, terrain, and a suitable place to land. As far as towers and terrain go, here in South Georgia, we don't really have that much, terrain. It's not very mountainous, very flat. And as far as near the Eastman Airport, we don't really deal with many towers. But traffic is a big one to look for, especially, as flight blocks open and close. The airspace near Eastman gets very busy. A suitable place to land is always going to be it's always the first thing I look for in my clearing turns. And if you're doing the clearing turn, or if you're doing clearing turns near this road that you're going to be maneuvering on, this road would be an excellent suitable place to land. So we're going to start this maneuver between 600 and 1,000 feet. As whenever we get in the plane to do it, it will be at 800 feet above ground level. So around here is going to be 1,100 feet MSL. So we're going to choose a road perpendicular to the wind. So right here I marked that the wind is blowing this way, perpendicular to the road. And we're going to start the maneuver about 100 knots, at least below 118, because that is our maneuvering speed at 2750, which is what we'll normally operate, or 2,750 pounds, which is normally what we'll operate at. We're going to start our power with 21 inches in manifold and 2,400 RPMs-ish, and that's subject to change. Just, the weather gets colder or engine performance is affected in any way. We're going to start with the gear up, and the way we're going to determine the tailwind is, first thing that we'll always use is the arrows that we use have wind indicators inside the glass portion of the avionics, and it will often tell you where the wind's coming from and whether or not you're dealing with a tailwind, a headwind, a crosswind, and often by how many knots. But should that fail, or should you be doing this in a steam cockpit, you can often look around and see smokestacks. If somebody's burning something, you can see where the wind's pushing it. You can listen to the ATIS of nearby airports, since we'll be fairly close to the ground anyways. And you can even use cows in some of these farmers' fields, because the cows will always be facing away with their butts to the wind to keep their heads warm. But we likely won't see any cows. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to enter this with the tailwind. As we cross over the road and begin the maneuver, we're going to want to be wings level here, over the road. And then as we start turning, we're going to have our steepest bank here, because our ground speed is going to be much faster at this point, because we have much of a tailwind and the aircraft pulling us forward, which is going to increase our turning radius. As we turn into the crosswind here at position 2, we are going to shallow the bank out, so we're going to have the steepest bank here. As we hit point 2 right here, we're going to enter we're going to kind of track it back to more of a moderate bank, because our ground speed slowed down since we had a crosswind and not a tailwind now. So we're going to have moderate bank here. As we get into position 3, we're going to have more of a shallow. So shallow bank here, because we're entering more of a headwind, which will decrease our ground speed and subsequently decrease our turning radius. As we cross over the road here, we want to be wings level right here as well. So we just want to start basically exactly how we started here, except for facing the opposite way. And to finish out the second half of this maneuver, we're going to enter a shallow bank here. Basically, it's going to be the same bank as you found in this third position, because we're still dealing with this headwind. So our turning radius is going to be it's going to be much smaller than it will be at positions 1 and 6. So then as we turn, again, we're going to have the same bank here. Since we have more cross, we'll have the same crosswind that we had here as we did here. And at the 6th position, we're going to be dealing with more of a tailwind again, so we're going to have a steep bank here. So we're going to have the same bank here and here, since we have the tailwind that we're accommodating for on both sides. Moderate bank here and here, since it's the same crosswind, and the same shallow bank here and here. And we want to finish this maneuver being wings level here. So we want to be, every time we cross the road during this maneuver, we want to be wings level. Now, the common errors that a lot of pilots demonstrate when doing this maneuver is the first thing is they bring a faulty entry to the maneuver. So they'll either enter with a headwind or a crosswind, or they won't use their reference line as something that's particularly straight, like they may use a curved road or power lines that that aren't very straight. And that kind of plays into the poor planning. As far as the poor orientation goes, some people, whenever a common error that's made is they may not be wings level perpendicular with the road at either of these positions. Another thing that is a common error is poor division of attention. So during this maneuver, you want to be looking inside and outside of the plane very often to monitor your aircraft's heading, airspeed, altitude, and your radius to this point here and this point here. You can almost think of this maneuver as doing two half turns around a point. So you'll be using this as your reference point and this as your reference point along this road. Another common error is some pilots may have uncoordinated flight while they're executing this maneuver, so they won't have enough rudder or they'll have too much rudder. So you always just need to remember to step on the ball or the bar if we're using glass cockpit. And the last common error is some pilots fail to accommodate for wind drift. So this is, while I say, the bank's going to be steep, moderate, and shallow, moderate, and steep, I don't give specific bank angles, and that's because it's going to be different depending on the strength of the wind. So if the wind's particularly strong, you're going to have a particularly steep bank here and here, and it's going to be steeper here. It's going to be steeper across the board. But if you're particularly light wind or even calm winds, it's going to be a much more shallow bank as you go around. The common error that some pilots make is they don't accommodate for wind drift as much as they should. They see themselves being drifted out and don't put in more bank, or they see themselves drifting in and take bank out. As far as the standards go for your private pilot check ride, we need to make sure that we are between 600 and 1,000 feet AGL, but we always will do this at 800 feet AGL, so that shouldn't be an issue. We always need to know to stay coordinated during every phase of each turn. So always that just goes back to stepping on the ball or the bar if we're using glass. We need to maintain a proper division of attention. So we need to be inside the plane, outside, inside, outside, inside, outside, to make sure that we are not drifting off or getting too close, and that we're wings level as we cross here, here, and here. And last thing are numerical criteria that we have to accommodate for on the private pilot check ride is you have to stay within 100 feet of your picked altitude and 10 knots. So we will enter this, like I said earlier, at about 100 knots. So as long as you stay between 90 knots and 110 knots, you will fulfill this standard. As long as you stay between 700 and 900 feet above the ground, you will check this box off on the standards for the check ride. But of course, we're going to shoot for perfection. We're going to aim to be on airspeed, on altitude all the time. So lastly, just to wrap this up, we're going to enter this on a downwind across a road. We're going to be we're going to be wings level here, here, and here. As we enter the first point, we're going to go steep, steep bank, moderate bank, shallow bank, and of course those will change as the wind gets stronger or weaker. And then as we cross the road, we want to be wings level, then shallow bank, moderate bank, and steeper bank as we incur that tailwind and higher ground speed with the larger turning radius. So that is S turns.